everyone, Shaylin here for the second video on yoga and running. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about stretching because I find stretching to be pretty controversial, especially in the run community. I think this comes from the fact that there are so many different ways and approaches to stretching, so oftentimes they're all lumped under one bucket. When it comes to stretching within yoga, one of the best approaches I think is through dynamic stretching. So dynamic stretching is stretches that aren't static, long-held poses, but rather us moving in and out from pose to pose, or maybe even just holding the pose or stretch for a couple of breaths. Now there's lots of benefits to dynamic stretching, especially when used pre-race or pre-workout. Think of dynamic stretching as simply your warm-up. This has the power to warm up the tissues, create good circulation, wake up those neuromuscular connections, and even prime the big movers of your body for running. It also has some great benefits when it comes to recovery because it can help rehydrate the tissues and support them feeling good later. So maybe you use the practice on a recovery day. What I'd like to show you now is a really simple flow of dynamic stretches that you could use, say pre-workout, pre-race, if you just had a few minutes. So you don't need anything for this, all you need is yourself. You're just gonna find a nice stable ground. You can always come into this through a downward facing dog if you're familiar. I'm just gonna go real simple and start out in a lunge. Take your feet about as wide as your hips. Let's start with the right leg. Put a little micro bend in the back knee if that helps really neutralize the pelvis. And then think about the front knee as tracking forward and going no deeper than 90 degrees. Inhale, reach your arms up overhead, and then exhale, start to swim the arms back. Find your belly hovering above your front thigh and really push into your front heel. And then with most of the weight in your front foot, inhale, rise on up, draw your left knee towards your chest. Actively flex the toes towards your nose, and then find a figure four. Left heel just above the right knee, begin to send the hips back and keep an active flex lifted foot. As you inhale, take your knee up with you, and then find the pinky toe side of the back foot. Bend at the knee, neutralize your pelvis, and just hinge forward, little micro bend in your standing leg. Think about someone hugging your outer hips towards one another. I know I struggle with this balancing. Slowly release your lifted leg and let the ball of foot find the earth. Whew, and that was a lot. Inhale, rise on up. Let's go ahead and do it one time on the other side as well. Now you might start to find your own flow with this. Again, always the opportunity to hold in a pose if there's a little bit of tightness, but just for a couple of breaths. Inhale, sweep your arms up. Exhale, swim them back, hinge forward. Inhale, rise, draw your back knee towards you. Exhale, figure four. Send the hips back. Inhale, rise up. Exhale, catch the pinky toe side of the back foot, little quadricep stretch as you hinge forward, and then let the ball of the foot find the ground. Inhale, rise on up. So one more thing I wanted to add, just in case you find yourself in a yoga class or doing some stretching on your own, are three really simple guidelines that help make stretching more productive for runners. So the first one is you never need to go beyond 60% of your full range of the motion. Oftentimes we think we need to go to our very deepest stretch. I think it comes from back in the days of PE where there was that thing we would lean against in a reach form. We were going as far as we possibly could. Not necessary. Think about going only until you feel that first piece of sensation and then just stay and breathe. If you're in a class where it's seated stretching and it's passive, meaning you're not using your muscles, only go 60% and give yourself some props so you've got something to lean into versus just dangling in gravity. The second one, if you're in a pose, typically a standing practice, where you're ever descending, so lowering the chest or lowering one of your limbs, let the descend or the fall towards the ground be as slow and controlled as possible. This ensures that the muscles that are lengthening stay turned on. Now, oftentimes muscles are most vulnerable when they're in a lengthened but passive state. So teaching the muscles to work and lengthen can be really brilliant for teaching resiliency. The last one, think about as much of the practice as possible, especially if it's a standing active practice like flow or vinyasa, being created through active range of motion. This means that instead of using gravity and momentum or pulling yourself deeper with your arms, you're actually using the muscles that create that shape to get in. This often means that we aren't pulling on our feet. We're really using our core and other muscles to go deeper, because when you're using your muscles to take you into a shape versus external pressures, it tends to be a lot safer. Hopefully that helps give you some really great ideas to begin approaching your yoga or stretching practice. I am always here for questions and support if you have them. So happy run and yoga practicing.